Just south of Plattsburgh on Route 9, as the highway converges with the shoreline of Lake Champlain, overlooking the water to the Valcour Island in the background, is what could arguably be called the most underappreciated monument to the American Revolution to be found anywhere in northern New York. It reads, commemorating the valor of American forces led by Benedict Arnold at the Battle of Valcour, October 11th, 1776. The day that I am videotaping this is October 11th, 2011. But believe me, if we were standing here on this day in 1776, oh my, what a battle we would be witness to. Here's what happened. Knowing that British frigates were sailing down Lake Champlain to try and capture an unprepared Fort Ticonderoga, then in the hands of the Americans, Arnold set up a watery blockade, stretching 15 armed but small gunboats in a line between Valcour Island and the mainland. The British, in what must have been one of the greatest double takes in naval history, spotted the blockade as their larger, heavily manned frigates sailed past the southern end of Valcour. Falling into Arnold's trap, the British managed to turn into a stiff north wind, no easy feat for large, heavily masted ships. But the British finally engaged the modest American fleet in what is considered to be the first battle of the American Navy. The battle raged most of the afternoon, with the British prevailing. Arnold lost 11 of his 15 ships, 80 of his men were killed or wounded, and 120 of them were captured. But Arnold was not about to give up. That night, as the British lay at anchor repairing their ships, Arnold sneaked past them and began a run toward Ticonderoga. At first light, British Commander Guy Carleton spotted the fleeing Americans and gave chase. Arnold's remaining boats were all lost, one after another, during this heroic delaying tactic in the face of the most formidable navy in the world. But while the Battle of Valcour was a victory for the British, it was a strategic victory for the Americans, as Carleton, with winter setting in, had to finally turn and run for Quebec, rather than risk being frozen into the ice of Lake Champlain. It would be another whole year before the British could reach Fort Ticonderoga with enough ships and men to make a go of it. But in the meantime, the fort's defenses had been greatly improved, and when the British did finally return, the Americans were ready for them. Later on today, as in every October 11th, up the road at Clinton Community College will be the official commemoration of the Battle of Valcour. There'll be speeches and a little bit of music perhaps, even a wreath-laying ceremony, but I doubt there'll be very much said about the American hero who cooked up the Battle of Valcour in the first place. And his name was Benedict Arnold. Yep, that Benedict Arnold. Regardless of his many victories and heroic deeds, Benedict Arnold was constantly ignored when it came to promotions. And it is said, many of Arnold's daring feats were credited to other officers in the Continental Army. More than once, charges of corruption were brought against him, but most of these were eventually dismissed. Bitter and disillusioned, some say Arnold started to heed the advice of his wife, who was a Tory. Nonetheless, Arnold sought and was given the command of West Point, a very strategic location overlooking long reaches of the Hudson River. But when his plot to surrender the point to the enemy was revealed, Arnold quickly climbed aboard a British warship and fled to England. There, he received a commission as Brigadier General in the British Army. He soon returned to America, where he commanded British forces at battles in Virginia and Connecticut before the war ended with the American victory at Yorktown. After developing various business schemes in Canada and the West Indies, Arnold died on June 14, 1801, at his home in London. An enigma in Britain and widely despised in America, by the time of his death, Benedict Arnold had become largely ignored. In the end, he was no one's friend. Okay, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But why is it today, over 200 years later, that Benedict Arnold's name is still synonymous with being a turncoat? I mean, if you look at the timeline of his life, before going over to the other side, he did some very brave and historic things. Then why is he still remembered as a traitor? I say it's time to change that. On the bicentenary of the Declaration of Independence in 1976, a stained glass window was placed in St. Mary's Church in London, not far from the crypt that holds the remains of Benedict Arnold. The window depicts Arnold as a respectable Anglo-American. In America, however, the monument commemorating the Battle of Saratoga is not so kind. Several exterior niches hold life-size bronzes of some of the heroes of the battle, but the one that was supposed to house Benedict Arnold's likeness remains empty. Even on the Saratoga battlefield itself, there is only this out-of-the-way stone carving of a military riding boot, Benedict Arnold's boot, honoring the severe wounds suffered in battle to the leg of a brave American, but not to the American himself. There's been talk for years now about moving this monument up the road to either the Valcour Conference Center or the Peru Boat Dock, both with much more parking for people that want to visit the monument. But if you find yourself cruising up and down Route 9 in the meantime and you come across this monument, I suggest you pull off the road, get out, read what it has to say, look out across the water to Valcour Island, and reflect on what happened here. It was a battle many historians believe actually changed the course of the American Revolution. And it was all championed by a true American hero, a man by the name of Benedict Arnold. For Mountain Lake Journal Extra, I'm Derek Muirden.